Welcome back to another Colors of Prog. This is the podcast show where I review progressive rock recordings, bands, etc. primarily. So today's show is just going to be a mixture of bands from all around the world. Trying to keep it to the 4 or 5 max. First is Cast. It's the name of the band. Vigesimus, 2021 release. They're a Mexican band. This album's sung in English. The Cast were formed in 1978. Their first album was released in 1994. And by 1996, they had released 5 albums, which is quite a feat. Vigesimus is 75 minutes long, and it reminded me of Transatlantic, the Flower Kings. Probably much different from their earlier albums, the ones I just mentioned, released in the mid-90s, which apparently were very much inspired by 70s prog bands. Luis Vidales plays keyboards. He's the founding member. His brother Bob Vidales, vocals. Lupita Acuna, vocals. Claudio Cordero plays guitars. Roberto Izzo, violin. Carol Homeran, bass. And Jose Bringas, percussion. I find it a very interesting album. It's kind of got that, what do they call it now, neo-prog sound, looking back, but there's a lot of bands like Transatlantic, the Flower Kings, which I mentioned, which are influencing music now. Since these guys started out and they had a different kind of sound, to my knowledge, that they're taking the influence of these very popular bands and interspersing that with their sounds. Very good. Some tracks I recommend on Vigesimus are Location and Destination. The Crossing. Very good. It's an interesting band. Next is Ciccada. Harvest is the album, 2021. They're from Greece. Dimi Spela and Evangelina Cozzini pretty much are the main band members. Ciccada was formed in 2005 in Athens, Greece. This entire album is sung in English, and it primarily uses wind instruments, such as flutes, clarinets, tenor and baritone saxophones, recorders, for keyboards, mellotron, harpsichord, synthesizers. Their first release as a band was in 2010 on an Italian label, and they followed that up 5 years later in 2015 on another label, because they have a unique sound. The newest, Harvest, is on Bad Elephant label. So what does Ciccada sound like? Prog folk, I would say. Some psychedelia influences in the sound. Think Renaissance, curved ear, and English folk of the 70s. It's quite a pleasant album to listen to. It's very relaxing. It doesn't have some of the cacophonous, noisy sounds of bands who try to put too much into things. So this was quite a surprise. That was Ciccada. Next up, I have Chronofonia, and they're also calling the album Chronophony. So Chronophonia, spelled Cronfonia. It's also the name of the band, and the album also is known as Chronophony or Chronophony, Chronophony. from that what you will. It's a 2021 release. This is another interesting, this is a Mexican-European project. The musicians include Joaquin Ortiz, Pablo Ortiz, both on vocals and guitars, Sally Minier from Celestial Fire, Dave Bainbridge from Celestial Fire, Iona, The Strobes, and about a dozen other bands. Frank Van Essen, also from Iona, who works on strings, percussion, and worked on production. Gabriel Agudo's on this. David Cross. Dave Bronze, also from Iona, among others. There's 22 tracks across these two CDs. And it's very much in the Iona style, mixing Christian faith with Celtic influences and some Mediterranean influences as well as some touch of South American. It's a very awesome project, I mean, in terms of scope, in terms of what they brought into this. And I believe it's a concept album, at least I think it is. I couldn't find out much information on it. Since it is rather new, a new release, there aren't too many reviews of it out there. But if you like Iona and are a big fan of Dave Bainbridge, his stamp is all over this. Also, those who like Neil Moore's solo albums and some of his more faith-based work, which have a folk and rock edge, you might enjoy this as well. So the big mystery is progressive. Yeah, there are progressive elements in this. I think this was a huge blender of stuff. It sounds quite good. I mean, they worked really hard on this. Very ambitious, 22 tunes and over 2 CDs, but I enjoyed it, and you might as well. Next I'm going to Darwin, and the release I'm talking about is Darwin 3 Unplugged. So another 2021 release. So this one's odd. Darwin is a guitar player, and he did the string arrangements. Simon Phillips, well-known drummer. He worked with Jeff Beck, a host of other people, The Who. Pete Townsend solo, percussion and keyboards. Matt Bissonette contributes vocals on 3 tracks and played bass. So they've only done 2 albums prior to this. But it's definitely a melodic, progressive album led by the mysterious Darwin. Yes, I've seen some things claiming he was a self-proclaimed time traveler, and other things, the man from the future. And as far as his mind goes, and he passionately likes to work in the present. Okay. So Darwin 3 Unplugged originally appeared as the second bonus disc on the second album, Darwin, A Frozen War, which told of an apocalyptic war. Yes, that was a concept album. This is aided by the Chamber Orchestra of London and the Reykjavik Quartet of Iceland, which apparently where Darwin comes from. It's very mysterious. It's very orchestral, it's very symphonic. And there's only 4 vocals, 3 from Matt Bissonette and one another year, which is sung a cappella. And there's a woman's voice in that, but I'm not quite sure who she is. Again, like many of these projects, finding hardcore band information is a little difficult. Finally, we're going to head into Ellesmere with their Wyrd album, W-Y-R-D. That's a 2020 release. And Ellesmere hails from Italy. The Darwin I just mentioned seems to be a multinational band. So for Ellesmere, it's a project from Roberto Vitelli. He's from the band Teplobron. And that band was founded in 1996, but only released 3 albums between 2001 and 2006. At the time, their sound was said to have been like a Genesis ELP flavor. Vitelli joined in 2012, and the sound of the 2013 album Strigma was often compared to Goblin and the Japanese band Ars Nova. So Vitelli created Ellesmere in 2015, and Wyrd is only their 3rd album, being 2021 now. He's another guy who recruited band members from all over the world. We have here band members from Angligard, the Flower Kings, David Cross again, John Hackett on flute, David Jackson from Van de Graaff Generator, Tony Pagliuca from Leome, and there's so many others. There's only 5 tracks on Wyrd, and they're all long songs. 2 are 8 minutes, 2 over 6, and the 5th tops over 13 minutes. It creates an enjoyable symphonic prog sound, I thought. And so I've taken a look at some other reviews of Wyrd, and I see a lot of people picking Genesis and ELP, and I just do not hear that at all. I hear, yes, there's definitely some notes from some bass lines of early Yes albums. These guys are doing music that's so popular, so influential in the 1970s and the early 1980s that it's stuck in them, you know. So that's fine. And Gone, I hear Gone, I hear the art rock fringe of bands like Post Red King Crimson. Actually, the song Endless, you could hear some Frippertronics going on, that backward guitar part from Robert Fripp that he made so popular. Also much of David Jackson's sax and Hackett's flute and Cross's violin. They create quite an unusual sound here in this symphonic progressive sound. There's like just these honking saxes and the violin playing ever so slowly, and then they kind of intertwine. Ellesmere is very good, this Wyrd album. So I'm very curious about other things they have done. So was this album created in lockdown during the pandemic, or was it like recorded and mixed and then released, you know, whatever? I'm not quite sure, but also Fabio Benenglia is on keyboards and Matthias Olsen is on drums. I did want to mention them, very good. But there's like so many people on this album supporting and guesting. But you know, as opposed to other albums, bands that brought in other people to support their music and their songs by adding into a tune here and there, or maybe mixing them in, sort of like the Chronophonia I just mentioned, which had so many band members from Iona. It's almost an Iona album, isn't it? One could think so. But there's so many people here. But Ellesmere's Wyrd creates a sound. And it's like pretty phenomenal how you can pull that off. Just get all these people. You want to play on my record, you want to play on my record, and just create something. I wish it was longer. Although, again, as I said, the tracks are long. So enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'll be back shortly. Stay safe out